man, we're building darn good, durable houses. And I don't think people are acknowledged for that enough. Take the time to honor the person that made that backsplash and set that countertop and made that door when you go into the bedroom go to the outside wall and the switch right on your left. And those stairs are all at this incredible same height with that rise and run. It's easy to point out what's wrong. You want to notice what's right? Stop and acknowledge it, brother.
Welcome to Builders, Budgets, and Beers. I'm Reece Barnes, and I started this podcast to have real conversations about money in the building industry, the wins, the mistakes, and everything in between. I believe builders deserve to feel confident about their finances, and that starts by hearing from others who've been through it too. This industry can be slow to change, but the right stories and the right tools can make profitability feel possible. Let's get into it. All right, mics are hot, Mark. We're live.
We're live.
We're live recording. What's that?
L-I-V-E.
L-I-V-E. That's right, baby. Cool. Well, I appreciate you carving out some time to jump on Builders, Budgets, and Beers. As you may know, in the beginning of these podcasts, we just start with giving the audience a little idea of who is on the podcast. So, Mark, go ahead and give yourself an introduction, kind of your background, what you focus on, what you're involved with, just some of the basics.
Great. Sweet to be here, sitting here. Wish we were next to each other like we normally are out at these events. My name is Mark Willie. Might know me from the team at the Build Show, sure. And background, I was lucky. I was given a hammer when I was 5 years old. My dad ran lumber yards. My uncles built homes. And the train station was blocks for the house. That's why lumber yards are by a train station. And I've always been on construction sites. I've always worked in shops, making furniture and cabinetry and custom wares. It's part of my upbringing. Back in the day, no one would know this, but large manufacturers, in order to get buyers from lumber yards to come, you had to bring the wife and kids. And so I got to be on the floor of sawmills.
Very cool.
Trees were ripping down the line and people were smoking on the line. It was the Wild West. And
sure.
I got to go to more mills as a kid than I can ever get into as an adult. Obviously, this thing called safety was invented.
Of course.
But pre-safety, young Mark Willie was touching logs rolling down the line.
I'm sure. So where did the lumber come from? All over the United States?
Yeah, it mostly British Columbia was the primary spot where it was coming into. There were some different mills to the east, but the way our train routes came in and out of Chicago, most of it was there. And we did have Doug fir and hemlock fir as well as all the SPFs.
Okay, SPFs. Educate the tech
SPF is a generic acronym for spruce, pine, fir. So when you get a 2x4, a 2x6, all your framing material, that is set to the guidelines of SPF, meaning spruce, pine, fir. So that nominal 1.5 inch by 3.5 inch 2x4 to today's standard, those are the species.
I love it. And it's like, you got your SPF, you've got your LVL, which I don't even know that I know it's a term, LVL.
So here's the fun.
Help me.
LVL came around. I know LVL came around later. Back then, this is going to blow your mind. All those ridge beams and supports, right, were Doug fir and hemlock fir. So you would have even 3 inch by 14 inch. Those were thick pieces. They would go up to 44 feet long. right? And
It's
then
insane. And that's a
glulam.
testament to the forest, right? And like how the logging practices, because they could get that long or that tall.
It's yes, it's the age of those trees and the forestry process that we had, along with the shipping route to be able to deliver those by rail or by truck.
Got it.
The hard part is loading it locally and delivering it. That's why the glue lambs were invented. So you had that engineered piece that was true to form, and the lumberyards could cut it to the length that was needed for that builder. And then engineered wood, because of maximizing its values, came around with the LSL and the LVL.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Laminated veneer lumber.
Veneer
Basically
lumber.
plywood in the form of structural wood.
Okay. See, that's why, love spending time with you, Mark, because, I learned so much. And, I grew up in the industry. I'm familiar with the TLAs, right? The 3-letter acronyms.
Yep.
But, I always need a little reminder, bring it back to center. Not everything's about tech. Not everything is about money, sometimes about getting out there and knowing what you're building. Right.
Yeah. Keep in mind, acronyms are designed to help people, but in all reality, it confuses people with false language, right? Like, if we called each other by our initials, we'd be sitting there like, what is that? Is that MW over there? Is that JB up there? Like, it'd be horrible. Like, stop. We're not the medical profession.
Right. Let's just keep the directness that the industry is so famously known for. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, so for the listeners, I think it's interesting just for the listeners to know how we got the podcast lined up. So we were in Dallas at the Build Show Live. It is a Matt Reisinger build production event. And it was fantastic. Adapted. We were an underwriter sponsor. So what that means is, like, before all of the events started, there was an exclusive event for builders to come in. Mark and I, we've known each other through the years, gotten to know each other through the years, just, brief run-ins. We sat down next to each other and we were listening to, I think it was Brent Hall's session.
It was,
on the history of architecture, essentially. And so from there, we actually were striking up, and the conversation kind of kicked off with a gentleman named Levitt. Who's the guy's what's his first name?
Brad.
Wait, is it actually Brad Levitt?
Yeah.
Okay, so the production home builder guy.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and that's actually hilarious because Brad Levitt of A Finer Touch down in Phoenix is doing almost like the opposite of what this guy did.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. That's who I thought we were talking about. Was
no. Okay, we can dig this up. This is fine. Okay, so Brad Levitt obviously is a custom home builder in the Scottsdale area, but in regards to the Brent Hall conversation, it was like essentially like the father of production home building.
Yeah, I don't have the depth that Brent Hall has, so I'm gonna plead Mark forgot with oversensitivity.
You're good. I'm gonna look him up. Production home builder. Essentially, what the conversation was: William Levitt. He was the pioneer.
William Levitt, great uncle to Brad Levitt.
Correct. It's in the family. I think it's actually spelled differently. But he was often nicknamed the Henry Ford of housing.
That's right.
He essentially figured out the production build model, and a lot of the conversation was around the price per square foot concept, which obviously resonates quite well with production building, right?
Friendly reminder. Thank you for that. And if Brento is out there listening, he is probably unhappy with me. I don't have the depth you have, brother.
No, I'm literally gonna text him this episode once it comes out. I'm gonna be like, hey, you had a guest appearance on the pod. But no, and so okay, so we can talk about, I think generally, just with your background being a builder, we can talk about, kind of your opinions of price per square foot, how you see that running in, but we don't have to make this an entire conversation around it because obviously we're not experts about it.
Yeah.
But generally, Mark, so what are you building? Because you're a contractor.
Yeah, I'm blessed right now not to do day-to-day work, and I'm frustrated right now not to do day-to-day work. So it's that
Blessed and frustrated.
my optimism always is there, and the burden of not working on a job site is also there. So uh, the company that I have is no longer exists because of the sheer amount of time I put in with build productions, let
Yes.
alone traveling, right?
Hmm.
It would be a fiasco if I tried to run a building company right now.
Sure.
So I get to consult on projects, and consult is such a funny word. It can mean whatever you make it mean because it's
Sure.
all bending of philosophies anyway. But
Hmm.
for the most part, I walk people through the process that they don't have the muscles for. So if your strength is design, terrific, because don't care about design. To me, design is lipstick.
Yeah.
So I will embrace with them the philosophies of the envelope and a proper planning, no rework, and long term resilient, durable features.
Love
And
it.
kind of make sure architect, contractor, and suppliers are all on that same page. And if I need to, I'll be very influential in saying no because some people don't say no.
Right.
So I position myself for their success
What are
rather
some of the
than,
no's that you hear people not being comfortable? Like just some examples.
yeah. Um, Well, we found this contractor if you're on the client side, and they wanted us to do this. So that's gonna work. We're gonna be okay with that, right? Or uh contractor being stuck with constant changes because the underinformed customer didn't listen to the procedures given. And
Okay.
so you step in and say, no, you guys are agreeing to two different things. And
Hmm.
you're not agreeing to what is best for the house, best for the client, best for the skill set of the people involved. Like sometimes people are saying yes because that awkward conversation of interjection is not there, or the depth as to why the awkwardness is there. Well, our architect drew this, but we didn't know really what he meant. Okay.
Sure.
Did you have an 8-hour conversation with an architect that drew your plan for 8 months? Come on. That's
Right.
not there. Give people the time and the runway to learn at their pace.
Sure. Well, and I think that kind of like ties in, not that we need to make like a whole episode about price per square foot, but I mean, I think
Yeah.
that probably like plays into this, right? To a degree, because you probably got like a consumer that's like uneducated and has like a lot longer learning curve. They've probably heard of a price per square foot concept, right? Before they start talking to a builder. And then the builder is in a rock and a hard spot of like, how dressed up do I make this product, the lipstick, as you call it, right? And the design versus the price per square foot for a very well built home that you might have to cut some of the lipstick out of to get to where the client needs.
Yeah.
What's your take? I mean, how does that play? Go ahead.
It plays out because both parties have preconceived ideas, but not the sussed out version. They're both hungry for a meal, if we take construction in the form of a meal. And these
Hmm.
folks over here are expecting a buffet at an Italian restaurant. And these folks over here have set up this incredible Asian cuisine to last throughout the day. So they're
Hmm.
both ready to get fulfilled, but their expectations are not aligned. They've shopped at different stores, they organized different sous chefs, and they've delivered a completely different table setting. But
Totally.
the mess we're left with might still be tasty. So
Right.
if we back that up and say, yes, this is your budget, but yes, your quality is here. But yes, your timeline is here. Okay. can we back up? Can we please back up and at least agree on the entree, the type of cuisine, and the recipes and the way to prepare it? And let's not start building it. Let's back up that whole procedure on wants, on needs, and expectations so we're all fulfilled. Like they get so caught up in, well, that wasn't in the contract. Okay, you're right. And let's be litigious if we have to get there. But let's go along and get along because this romance is just beginning. We got a whole bunch of dancing to do, right? And let's enjoy it. We're creating something that never existed. Try creating something that never existed in the element of tension.
Explain that. I see where you're going, but yeah.
You can't. It's gonna be garbage. Like, yes, you could be intense. Good on you for being intense and having that muscle. But if you're tense and there's always that posturing of, I told you we could only have site visits after 4:30 and it's 3:45. Okay, bendable. A little bit of bendable, right?
Yeah.
Yes, you're not talking directly to the carpenter when he's setting a beam, right? But by golly, if you don't want a bathroom next to your kitchen, then don't let someone draw it there.
Right.
Don't try to move it after it's there. It sounds funny and obvious. It sounds annoying and frustrating too, right? That's that whole balance thing. But
yeah,
good golly, is the person talking being heard? And are they articulating everything that needs to be listened to?
Totally. Well, and I think that's where like it goes into the dance and like, again, not to beat this like price per square foot thing into it, but I kind of like view this as like, A, like expectation setting is huge. B, it's like this, the price per square foot or like this like rigidity to a process is almost like, you know, someone who's trying to find a partner going in and saying, I'm going to go find a partner. Right. And it's like, usually those people are the ones that struggle the most to find the individual, right? It's kind of like, I'm trying to build a house for $500 a square foot, right? But then they're trying to find someone who's a $750 a square foot person for the $500 square foot number. And if you're not willing to massage and bend and be flexible and communicate, right, and have a clear understanding, then you can be in a really tough situation. So like generally, like I want to hear it. Like, what is your overall stance on builders that are following or are like put a lot of emphasis in this price per square foot conversation? What's your general take?
To me, price is more of a factor in scale development and multifamily. If you're building a one-off home, sure, there's a real number there. There's a real budget there. But why are we starting that conversation there? Because if I have $1.50 and I'm expecting a gourmet burger, I better go to the butcher and get that ground beef myself and prepare it. But if I'm expecting to meet you at 5:30 in Las Vegas and burgers are meal and someone's serving that up, that $1.50 budget is not going to go very far.
It'll get you a bite.
If I'm lucky, I'll get a pickle and wish I had the burger, right? This is not between vegetarian and carnivores, but pickles and burgers are different. So
totally.
The price per square foot scares me in that we don't always know where it's being aligned. If quality is what you're looking for, you might only be able to handle a bit of that quality. So I really want an energy efficient home. I really want 12-inch wide, 10-foot long, clear oak flooring. Okay, great. Based on your budget, we are going forward with the geothermal, and you are going to have wonderful oriented strand board OSB subfloors. 3 years from now, we're going to come back and we're going to put in that oak, because your price per square foot does not allow for the lipstick yet.
I
But
love
you
it.
get the geothermal now, and that's going to be there, and you're going to be very comfortable. You know, we could say forever, but they're probably moving in 6 to 8 years.
Totally. Wink, wink. There we go. Yeah, it's not that lifetime asset that it probably was when William Levitt was building. But I think that, again, it goes back to the conversation of like prioritizing, right? And it doesn't, just because somebody says they want, you know, whatever, the clear oak floors with the geothermal net zero,
Great memory.
whatever it is, right? It's like you can have those conversations with your client and bend them into it. And it makes sense to me. And frankly, like, I think I carry a similar logic to you in the sense that like this price per square foot conversation has blended its way into the custom building market, when really it should be kept in more of this production developer style build, where they can control their costs, where they know what the product is that they're building. It is much more of a designed concept than it is just like a custom home that requires a lot of flexibility, a lot of conversation, a lot of communication, setting expectations. And then if you get to the end of that process and you're looking and you're like, okay, we can take the square footage of the home with the budget that we have in place, and we can find a price per square foot if that's important to you, great. But when that conversation happens, I think, is the important part. Not leading with this price per square foot, but ending with a price per square foot.
Yep.
So go ahead.
And all that is such a matter of space, total space. Had a weird lisp there. So what you have in the Bay Area and what you have in Mobile, Alabama, and all these different spots, it's always going to be different. And so if you break it down, the confusing part is it's not a true tally. So you're building, if it's a custom house, to the needs of the person, and having these large great rooms are very achievable, and it makes that price per square foot go lower, because that area in general doesn't have plumbing, right? It doesn't have added walls or added trim work. It has perimeter, right? Which is backup perimeter to all the other existing spaces. It has the lighting, which could be here in budgets. It has the mechanical, which is volume space. So there's not a huge margin of influence there, but there's less intricacies, versus each bedroom has a couple more doors for closets and a couple more framing for those closets, and the built-ins and the windows here, and then that molding running in and out, and has rich labor involved in, you know, it has its own lighting plan. And then it probably has an accompanying either half bath or full bath. So some of those shared mechanical, electrical, plumbing, the MEP things, help the volume of the space. It's why basements exists in areas where you can do basements, and how taxes are aligned and not aligned there, because that space is assumed or acquired into that model, versus that long ranch has extra footings going out. And then the multi-stories have all that more added trusses involved. So your factor is so different than a tiny house, right?
Totally.
Or those little factors of extra kitchens, right? Because your culture likes to have all that built in versus go up. There's so many complexities to that price per square foot. Is what do I want in each foot of the house? And how is that going to make my quality of life and hopefully my health, which we didn't get to, better?
Totally. Well, and I think so that's a great explanation, because that is what amplifies the comment of price per square foot happening at the end of the conversation versus the beginning, because there are so many variables, right? That's what your thread there was a testament to. There are 1,000 decisions that are going to go into getting that answer. And I think that's where, as a consumer, right, the person who's wanting the home built, you need to put some thought into what do you actually want before you go into this conversation. Now, can you have everything down to the pull handle on the trash drawer in the kitchen dialed before you enter the conversation? No. Right. But having a general theme of what is important to you, what is the non-negotiable, is going to help the process. And I think, in the custom world, that's where that slip can happen, right? You can get in and you can be, 6 months into a build and you're starting to get into picking light fixtures and countertops. Maybe that happens before. No, I'm not sure. Right. But the point is you can have that wiggle room, but then you're at least looking and you're saying, okay, it might not be at a $500 square foot at the end of this thing. This might bump it up to a 525, 550.
Though those line items, as you say, are so clear in some of our brains, right? And the more that's listed out, the better, because that's organization 101. Everything is a certain trigger for the contractor. The countertop color might not matter, but if it's stone and it's an intertwined wall splash, and if it's a double waterfall, etc. Now your trusses are accounted for, and your depth of the wall is accounted for, and the fact that there's a movie room on the other side, and there's no way I want to hear the blender going when little Timmy's doing homework at the table, right? Then
Right.
we need to have a back kitchen. There's those little odds and ends. And I think it all can be decided outside of design build if that pathway and what is not wanted is defined. And it also is the strength of that contracting company, that GC and builder. Hey, if they have in-house carpenters that love to do finish work, that price per square foot is not as high because that's what they love delivering. Like,
Right.
speaking back to Brad Levitt, one of his fortes are their trim work and their spatial deliveries are such pretty settings
Yeah.
that those clients are coming to them because their expectations will be met.
Mhm.
And the alignment of the really intense team that's over there is already there. That's not going to be for every contracting company. No way, no how, especially at the scale. That is not a fit, regardless of an agreed upon price per square foot.
Exactly. And that's, and again, it just goes back into like, what does the consumer want? And as you are talking to builders, Mark, actually, this is two questions. Like, first, where do you see price per square foot really skyrocketing in what component of the build? And then second, just with everything that you've seen in your career, where would you spend your price per square foot?
Okay. Say the first part again, because now I just got totally lost in the second part.
You're good. You're good. So where do you see price per square foot really starting to skyrocket?
Yes. Okay. I'm going to leave finishes out of this conversation because that is such a dependent part, and I will
Right.
circle back to it. Where it's growing is we have lists of materials and assembly that are code necessary now, with air barriers, vapor barriers, continuous insulation, WRBs, water resistant or weather resistant barriers, to give you the acronym definition. All these portions were never part of our assemblies, let alone high performance windows and doors. That envelope of the house that is delivering, let's say what it's delivering, resiliency and durability, is also taking other line items like mechanical and bringing it over here. So your mechanical loads of your structure are lessening, and that equipment does get replaced, moves over into that shell, because now we put the sweater and the hat and the scarf and all this, the belts and suspenders and boots and leg warmers, we put that on the shell. So now the house in hot times is not getting as warm, and in cold times is not getting as cold. Fun little scenario physics. Heat moves to cool. So in the summertime, that hot outside air is trying to get into our spaces. And in the cold parts of the year, that heat that we created inside is trying to get out.
Get out.
So that envelope portion, the continuous insulation or outsolation on the buildings and protecting that shell for longer periods of time is where huge costs are going to. Our walls were 2x4 walls with no insulation. And then we had this R3, and then we had this R8, and then we had this R11. And that was before we even had continuous insulation, before we talked about thermal control, like keeping that coffee warm or that beer cool. So that shell is a huge cost factor.
Interesting.
It's so important. And little trick for the builders and the clients of future builders and architects: ask your building municipality if the footprint of the house is on the floor space, because there's a price per square foot, or if it's on the perimeter. That's a different price per square foot. You want them to agree. You want them to agree that it's on the functional interior floor space. Because if you're building 14, 16, 18, 20-inch walls, you can't walk in those walls. So you won't pay for that price per square foot. Pay for the functional inside of the gypsum, let's call it, not the perimeter of your brick or cladding choice. So that's a huge factor. Huge.
Okay, so I think that's great, because, and I'm glad that you separated finishes from that answer, because that is the assumption, right? Like your finishes, your flooring, your cabinet packs, your all of that stuff, that's obviously going to inflate that number quite heavily, quite dramatically. But I think highlighting just the simple fact that craftsmanship, build science, which you're a huge part of influencing in the nation, is like, it is accelerating. We've got manufacturers, we've got vendors, we've got all of these people that are building higher quality products, the doors, the windows, the insulation concepts, the MEP, all that stuff is getting more and more expensive with the intention that it is a better long-term product, right? And I think that is one of the bigger gaps from the consumer builder ecosystem, is that it's almost like the consumer is lagging behind. And you might disagree with me on this, it might be getting better, but the consumer they're seeing value as, what are my countertops? Do I have soft close, cabinets in my kitchen, right? Do I have heated floors, whatever it might be? But they're not looking at the value of the home really being in the quality of the build and the quality of material and product that's going in. It's going to make that a long-standing asset.
Yep.
Especially when we start looking at 50-year mortgages. Go ahead.
Oh, man. Looks like part 2 is set for 4 months from now. Let's tear that up later. I got smacked in the face. This was a highlight of one of our conversations. We all remember history differently every time we tell a story. That finishes. The reason that was put on hold is, I told you about in Chicago, I did a lot of condo renovations. So someone buys it. The first thing they do is rip everything out.
Yep.
Right. I don't care when I need to move in. I'm still in my house that we raised our kids in or whatever, but we're going to move into this condo and we're going to live there until we die. It happens all the time. And so everything gets tore out, real fun to put all that stuff in elevators and
I can't
take
even
it out.
imagine.
But you go through, and generally these buildings are concrete, right? What are the walls? Concrete. What are the ceilings? Concrete. Concrete, concrete, concrete. And then they got these little chases to bring in probably water, probably waste, probably electric. And then there's glass. And there's only so much you can do. You bring your materials in, you bring your people in, you bring your tools in. So she had a budget. The lady was controlling everything. The husband, I was not allowed to talk to. So great. She had a budget, worked up the whole contract, and I allocated X for kitchen finishes, X for bathroom finishes, X for other bathroom finishes. And then the rest was all the other spatial stuff, flooring and so on. So she said yes to all that. All those numbers she thought were right. Everything was fine. Okay. Then I said, before we move forward, we're going to take you to a couple studios and a couple supply centers, and we're going to learn your tastes and interests. And I'm going to walk with you, but I'm going to let you and those folks talk, because I don't want to bring my objections. If I don't like something, I'm going to tell you. If I like something, I'm going to tell you, but I'm going to learn you.
Mm-hmm.
Out of the gate, and I had worked with this gal over there for a long time. She shows her the nicest tubs, the nicest vanities, the nicest everythings, and the luxus everythings. Then I said, I have to pause. I've got this call. I'm going to come back. You guys have your coffee, enjoy your danishes, and I'll come back. I came back, and their total, because this girl was good. She had her at the desk doing the total and selection. She's like, and then we'll do this, and you got to this toilet. All this stuff was coming in there. We got heated towel bars, the works.
Yeah.
That total that they came up with was more than my entire renovation total with the agreed upon line items.
Oh.
On top of it, she talked her into feature walls and doing all of the ceilings in clear wood. Why?
Oh my.
Because there's not lighting and concrete ceilings and all that stuff. And I was like, this contract is literally quadrupled over a Danish. And I thanked her. I thought it was great. Got the call from the husband the next day. I can't talk to you, sir. The contract's with your wife. I went back to the plumbing and design place, and I told her, I said, you are a wizard. I want to hire you. And I used to work for this lady. I want to hire you. She's like, you can't afford me. She was right. But price per square foot, agreed upon line item price per square foot. And over at Danish, Mark Willie, I was wrong. Way wrong.
Yeah.
Kevin McAllister, mouth drop.
Yeah, exactly. That's but that's all too common, right? Like that's just, that's what happens, right? You get in, I'm building the house of my dreams. I'm renovating the condo that I'm going to live in for the rest. I deserve it. I want this. And then you're just like, we are so far off. We are so far off. So what happened? What happened with the contract? Did you have to taper expectations? Did she go quadruple budget? What happened?
No, we went quadruple budget, and then we went nuts. Beyond that again. I brought in a designer, which in the beginning I was told no designers. I made custom furniture and did custom restaurants back then. So they wanted all that kind of stuff. And it just morphed and it morphed and it morphed. And I had already done like 3 units in a row at this building. And my staff didn't even want to go there. Like we didn't want the job to grow at all. Yeah. But, it's what you signed up for. And of course, it was a friend of a former client. So you feel like compelled. Were they great people? They were great people. But my formalities and all that stuff that I put in were not good enough.
Yeah.
We're certainly not good enough. Did we enjoy the process? We certainly did. Uh, but it was so long. Like the project was 9 months longer.
Yeah.
Literally 9
That's
months.
and what was it originally?
9
Do you
months.
remember?
We
Longer.
originally factored 5 months for the project.
Nuts.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was something. Sure enough, like I got the call like 5 months after we were done that there was a problem with the unit above theirs, and like half that bathroom needed to be ripped out. Like that bathroom was extensive quartz. I mean, extensive. And there's a leak in the building, and that came in. We had redone all the internal plumbing. I'd got board approval and all that. You got great union plumbers working on all this stuff. So our stuff was tight. But upstairs, something happened. I'm not pointing a finger, but something happened upstairs. And she literally called me. She said, "You need to redo our bathroom again." I said, and she's like, "Don't worry, it's all being paid for, all that." I said, "I am not redoing the bathroom.
Yeah.
We killed it on that job. We're too busy." And she's
Yeah.
like, "We'll pay you more." I'm like, "We will not do the work. We'll pay you more, Mark. We will not do the work." I
Yeah.
can't tell you how many times I said no. Really hard to say no to people that you enjoy um, the ownership of delivering their expectations, but you have to take in part that would probably morph again. It
Yeah.
wasn't like we were going to replace like with like. Couldn't even get the tub again. There's
Yeah.
no way we could have salvaged that tub.
Yeah.
And all that quartz. I mean, I'm not trying to save a piece of quartz. I don't like to be wasteful, but good God, this bathroom was like 12 by 12 in a condo building. When that
Right.
quartz comes out, I need to make sure all the issues are resolved. So that quartz is out.
Right. Right. It is gone. Gone.
Yep.
Yeah. Totally. No, I mean, and this is you're not the first builder. But I also think like the wisdom you share is like recognizing a client or a red flag and then having the self-control to say no when someone's literally ready to just write you check after check after check.
Mhm.
Understanding and having learned from your mistakes. Like this was a 5-month relationship that turned into a 14-month relationship. And
Look at
now
that
5
quick
months.
math, everyone. That's
right.
brilliant.
That's right. That's right. Simple addition has served me well. And you're just like, look, no, like go find someone else. Like we're not gonna turn quick, hey, come fix my bathroom 3-month relationship into a 9-month relationship.
I have pulled my license and insurance and contractor information from the board's list because I never wanted to go back to that building again.
Yeah.
But you got 12 people looking for parking in vans and pickup trucks on Lakeshore Drive in Chicago every single morning, only to be like looked at by everyone at the elevator. Gets a little old.
100%. Hearts go out to those building in large urban cities. Okay, last piece here. This is the second part of the question, or the second question rather. You're good. That was a great answer. What does Mark Willie spend his price per square foot on? You're building a house. You're doing a rent. Let's do new construction.
Yeah, let's do new construction. Okay.
Where is Mark Willie spending his price per square foot?
Yeah. Well, if you listen to the first part of the answer, you'll enjoy the second part of the answer because they're one and the same. At first, I'm gonna say that code is advancing. You could either get on the bus or you could fight the system. Code is advancing. The Department of Energy and all those net zero programs pave the path for this. And so I spend my money on the same thing that we're moving forward on, and that is the building envelope. It is okay. So let's state the obvious. If it's not obvious, after today, we're calling this the obvious.
Mm-hmm.
Water destroys all buildings. water destroys everything. It's incredible and wonderful all in the same sentence. So if we're not protecting all those pretty objects and pretty people inside, why are we doing it? So
Hmm.
in order to have durability and resilience, we're dealing with water.
Hmm.
We're also dealing with air infiltration, with which, when we cover air, we're also talking about the things that people don't want in their house, and that's critters.
Correct.
Whether it's a spider or an ant or a rat or a mouse or whatever size holes you have in your dwelling,
Right.
making them airtight also stops that stuff as well as stinky stuff
Yeah.
from coming in and out. And for everyone that wants to hold me on a portion of that out of context, I'll say yes, when the building is airtight, we are also bringing in filtered air from the outside through our ERVs and HRVs. We're not trying to suffocate people in a house. Get
Right.
over it. Not having an argument, you're nuts. So we're dealing with water, we're dealing with air, we're dealing with thermal because we want that sweater on the building, and we're dealing with vapor, but mostly um, because the WRBs are so good and proper insulation is being done, uh, that house is vapor open so that we're not trapping things in there. Some of the code doesn't exactly say that, uh, but if you're going to a performance method versus a prescriptive method, I'm always going to say you want a durable, resilient building where you factor in water, you factor in air, and you factor in thermal. That's what I'm going for. And I know you're all on that train. You all just nodded your head.
That's
Yep,
right.
there it
All the
is. I
listeners.
saw it.
That's
Everyone
right.
did it. They haven't even heard this yet. And they're out there walking around like this. Water, resilient, durable. Everyone's doing it.
Yeah.
So, boom.
I love it. Mic drop. Mic drop. Okay, that's great. That's great. And what is durable on a timeline perspective? Is this a 100-year house? Is it a 50-year house? What is the outcome of where Mark spends his money on the price
Is
per
that a
square foot?
50-year mortgage? Is that a 25-year mortgage?
Well, and
220,
that's
221.
so I think this is kind of a part of it. And like on past podcasts, I brought this up of like, we've got the 30-year mortgage. We've got DR Horton and Lennar slapping up these production homes that 6 months into the consumer living in them, they've got massive capital expenditures that they need to take care of, water leaks, cracked concrete foundations, all this stuff. And you're going, is this asset even worth the mortgage that it's tied to? Right. So that's where I'm kind of asking, frankly, is like, if you do invest in water, air, thermal, tighter envelopes, all of this stuff that's going to make the home structurally sound, what is the outcome? Right.
Yeah, let's back up and look at some of those points you said there first. I don't think these massive track builders, and look, I know the building science guys at these companies, the sustainability folks, they're real human beings with incredible skill sets. I've blower door tested a lot of their buildings with and without permission, right? Try and catch me. But I will also furnish the results. Here's the thing. Even years ago, most of those buildings were delivering 2 air exchanges per hour, and code was 5. Because of the materials today, they are building fast. But actually, they're building a lot better than we think they are. This is a generalization, right?
Okay.
So let's be general, but they're building better than even they know they are. The part of the system that's missing is that pre-insulation blower door should be a spectacle for the entire team. And then the post MEP and the final blower door and duct testing, it should be a big thing. Do I care about LEED and passive house placards? Not really. Do I care about why people are taking those steps? To point to your durability question, yes. And that's a highly detail related, highly selection and craftsmanship related thing that is being delivered upon, both for the people who are site building, panelized building, prefab building, and modular building. They're all delivering it. We have very good houses. We just don't have enough workers and we don't have enough housing stock. So if we're focusing on the durability factor that you have, now the need for so many more dwellings is diminished because the ones we have are lasting longer.
Mm-hmm.
Let's also try and make them symmetrical and pretty because you can make a Yugo. I'm not going to be funny, but I'm going to tell you to Google the Yugo car, right?
Okay.
It was designed to be fast and cheap, and there's some still on the road, right? That's because you can't drive them down the road, but they're literally on the road. Wink. But it achieved the fast. It achieved the cheap. The the sexy muscle cars that were out there that have still never been delivered to this day the way they were in the 50s, 60s, and part of the 70s allowed people to care for them and nurture them because they were jaw dropping, jaw dropping, jaw
Jaw
dropping,
dropping. Yeah.
right? And so, like, we need them to be durable, but we also need them to look good because if they don't look good, they're not going to be cared for.
Yep.
So, the grading and the landscape and the concrete footing and foundation, again, we're only talking about new construction. All that is a factor because we're not putting the house in a valley. We're putting the house on the hill. We're pouring that water away. All those durability factors are good. That building shell, that turtle shell can handle water. It can handle not being knocked around. Is there hailstorms? Are there, Mother Nature coming at us? Yeah, Mother Nature doesn't care about us. It's not her job. Mother Nature is caring for the things that actually take care of us that we can't notice, right?
Right.
Or dense human brains. But that durable structure, she's not doing a whole lot with that dense structure. It's good. We're not building out of solid stone, right?
Right.
We're not there. We don't have that. But man, we're building darn good, durable houses. And I don't think people are acknowledged for that enough. I think if you acknowledge that the waiter and waitress delivered that great meal from the chef and the kitchen and those recipes that are passed on, like, take the time to honor the person that made that backsplash and set that countertop and made that door when you go into the bedroom go to the outside wall and the switch right on your left, and those stairs are all at this incredible same height with that rise and run. Like, you want to notice what's wrong? It's easy to point out what's wrong. You want to notice what's right? Stop and acknowledge it, brother.
I love it. That was a perfect ending note. Mark, this was a classic, and you do a lot of content. Where can the listeners find you?
I'm on the Instagram mostly for collaborations. I mostly do collaborations on Instagram. Still trying to get my old account back. If there's any wizards out there,
wait, what happened?
I'm a knucklehead. When you change phone numbers, make sure you update that because you change phone numbers, it's hard to get back into your account when it does that cycle.
The two-factor.
Yeah.
Okay, we could figure that out. That shouldn't be too hard.
It's
harder than it sounds.
So Willie Build is on IG. This is the longest one ever. Mark Build Small Casitas Willie is on LinkedIn. I post daily. If I don't post daily, I post 2 to 3 times the next day to punish myself.
Yeah.
And to keep myself inspired. And I've got books on Amazon.
I love it. The ABCs of construction tech. I love it. Wait, I have never heard of this, Mark. I'm gonna look this up right now. The ABCs of construction.
So the series is called You Can Too. The title is called The ABCs of Construction Tech. And which one can I flip through? So you can, when you're at a trade show, you can add stickers. You can get notes from people, and then you could say, let's turn to page A, right? It's also a book that you do yourself. Yes, that's Alexander Basic.
I love that.
Notes in there. Don't read the notes. I haven't read them yet. But it could say A is for adaptive.
Exactly.
And you personalize the book. And then at the end, we have the acknowledgement. You can too, right? Like, if you're not acknowledging things, I feel bad for you because you probably need a hug. And
Yes.
I'll give you a hug. We'll both give you a hug when you see us in
That's
person.
right.
In fact, we'll probably hug you so much that you want to get away from us.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing better than getting a hug from a bearded guy.
Yeah, that book is designed for children. And if you read what Journal of Light Construction recently wrote about it, they're like, this is too hard for kids. Totally wrong. You can give words and philosophies and materials and methodologies to children. They don't know it's too far from them because we're preparing them for things that we don't even know that are going to exist. They're going to be solving problems long after you and I are fossilized.
1,000%. 1,000%. A little pressure will go a long way. You know, don't take the dog out of the fight too early, right? I love it. Okay, Mark, it has been an absolute pleasure. I appreciate you hopping on. And I'm looking forward to seeing you. I'm sure I'll see you at the International Builder Show.
We'll at least see each other there. Probably Journal of Light Construction, JLC Live, and
I'll definitely be at JLC.
Yep. Where else you going?
Right now, Build Show Live. We're talking about Build Show Live. It's gonna be in September
10th to the 12th, San Antonio, Texas.
That's right, San Antonio, Texas. And yeah, I need to work with Mel on this, but yeah, we're getting our event roster lined up. So at the very least, I'll see you at JLC, IBS, and Build Show.
Maybe we should do a podcast booth in San Antonio.
Live. I think we should. A little live podcast. I've wanted to do it for a while. When I was at Builder Trend, they did one. I think the challenge is getting the sound figured out. Granted, this was like probably 5 years ago when they tried it, and mics have come a long way. I mean, I just got a DJI, whatever it's called.
Everyone says DJI. You said it right. It's DJI.
Yes. So maybe we could. At the very least, we'll do more content. But
there's people that know people that have some cool acoustical products, and there's ways to help drown out that so that this can be heard.
We should work on that. We should put our heads together. That would be great.
You're awesome.
Great. Awesome. I appreciate you. The feeling is mutual. Mark, you enjoy yourself. Thanks for hopping on.